Hi everybody, this video is in response to subscriber Heather RJ's request that I make a sleeveless shirt out of a long sleeve button-up shirt. And that's what I did. And in the video, I saw that the way I was doing something, doing the alteration needed to be tweaked a little bit. So I moved to the other shoulder and corrected it, and I wanted you to see the outcome on both sides, because just like everyone else, I make tons of mistakes, and I made it on this video. So another thing I want to talk about before we get started is this video is kind of long, and I really try to keep my videos 10 or 15 minutes, and because I don't want to bore anybody. And believe me, there are some boring parts in this video, so much so that I was bored editing, and if I could, I would unsubscribe from myself, but I can't do that. So I really sped up the boring parts, chopped it in half, really trying to keep my video down, and it's still 27 minutes or 30 minutes with me rambling on like this. So let me know in the comments down below, are you okay with the longer videos? Do you want me to try and keep them shorter? I'm trying to really give you details without going too long. I know I can handle a longer video if the content is engaging enough and I'm learning from it. If it's endless rambling like I'm doing, not so much. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Give a thumbs up and share my videos. If you would like to support this channel, I will leave my Patreon and Subscribe Star links in the description box below. Thank you very much. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing you need to do is remove your sleeves, and don't just cut them off. You need to take the stitches out, because you don't want to cut it off and then have to lower your arm's eye underneath, unless of course it's too high and you want to lower it. But for this job, I am going to remove the sleeve by taking the stitches out, because when I cut it in, I'm going to taper it back down to the original cut line on the bottom of the arm's eye, because I don't want it to go too far down. So let's do that first, and then I'll be right back. Okay, the first thing you need to do is, now that your sleeves are off, you need to start taking up your shirt wherever it needs it, as much as you need it. So now that the sleeves are off, this would be a good time to take up the darts and the side seams until you get the fit that you want. So I just started here, and be sure not to go too tight, because you need to make sure you have enough ease for movement. So I would just start along the sides here, and you want to make it where it kind of fits. You know, here it looks good, and then you can start taking up the darts in the front and the back to give it the nice shape that you want. Okay, now that I have everything pinned up here, the darts, the side seams, I am going to take it off. And what you need to do is, now when you pin it, it's not always exactly the way it should be. So what you do is you measure from your pin to your seam, do it at the bottom, in the middle, and up here, and then here, and you add that space. So if this is 1 inch, and you add this one, if this is 3/4 of an inch, you put that together, 1 3/4 inches, and divide it by 2, and then you repin it to make sure that they're balanced on both sides. And then you do the same with the side seams, because this might be, you know, 1/4 inch off from this side, but you know overall that's how much you need taken off. So you add the seam amount, the additional, the amount you pinned out, you add them together, divide them by 2, and that's how much you take out each side, and repin or mark them like that. So this is what we're at right now. I'm going to leave the back the way it is. I think it looks fine just like that. You don't want it, because this, see, it's not enough unless you're very thin and you want it really, really snug. Then you can go ahead and do it with these darts here, like this. But I don't like mine like that, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. Okay, what I forgot to mention is if you have to take up enough fabric on your shirt that it comes down into the hem like this does, you're gonna want to take out the hem all the way around, take it to your ironing board and press all that down before you do this alteration. So I'm going to stop here, take all that in, and then I'll be back. Okay, as you can see, I took the hem out. I didn't really clear up the threads yet. I don't know how long I'm going to keep the shirt, but I'm going to measure the sides and see how much is I'm removing on each side. Like I said before, I'm going to add them together and divide them by 2. So this is, now I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to have to adjust this, because when I pinched it out, I didn't do it directly on the seam. So there's a little extra that was taken up, and it's just easier for me to do it, to fix it. Okay, so here at the bottom, it's 1 inch from the seam to the pin, and then here it's 1 1/8. So I'm just going to adjust it to a 1 inch because it's really not that much of a difference. And again, you can just do the same way if you want. If it's not that big of a deal and you go, oh, you know, it's just 1/8 of an inch or it's just 1/4 of an inch, and you can do it like that, then that's up to you. This is 1 1/4. This one would be, I'm just going to straighten it up and it would be the same. Yeah, I've got the pins pretty much right on both sides. Wow, they are pretty good. Right, that is 1 7/8. I'm going to move this one out a hair and move this one in a hair. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, those are good. Well, I thought I just recorded all of this, but apparently not. So what I did was, these were pretty much all spot on. They matched. So now I'm going to sew these areas. You can pin them like this and then sew the new line and take the pins out as you go, or you can chalk mark it, remove your pins, and just do it like that. But I'm going to do it like this because the pins also help to hold everything in place. Okay, Now that I have all the new seams in, I am going to get my serger out and I'm going to serge off all that excess fabric. Now, if you're doing this to a white shirt, I don't recommend you using a darker thread. I just don't have 4 white cones of thread, so I'm just using whatever I have on hand. So keep that in mind. Okay, now I'm going to the ironing board. I'm going to press everything out. Okay, I put the shirt on and I marked it where I wanted it on me. So I marked it here, and what I'm going to do is go over this side and onto this side, and I want it to be a straight line for, like, you know, at least a half an inch on each side or an inch on each side of that shoulder seam, that shoulder mark. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Now, they may not be the same distance from the end of the shoulder because, you know, we're not perfectly aligned either. So I marked it on each side, and then I'm just going to go with those marks. And since I'm doing white on white, it's really hard to see, but we'll work with it. Okay, so this is the time that you'll want to put your shirt on to make sure that it fits the way you want it to. This one is downsized, but it's not real form-fitting, which is fine for me. And then from here, I'm going to take it to the table and I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to recreate this line. Now this can go all the way up to the shoulder and come down like this. It can go here and it can go here, or you can just, you know, hem this right here. It just depends on the look you're looking for. I'm going here because it's on my shoulder, but it doesn't show my bra strap. So what you're going to do is, let me find a yellow one. If you're using a white, if you're doing this to a white top, make sure you don't use a colored chalk because it may not come out. But honestly, I don't wear sleeveless, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to mark this here. And then what I want you to do is come out 1/4 of an inch and mark it again. Because that first line is where your shirt will end. So you need to come out 1/4 of an inch, and that will be your cutting line. So you have your the edge of your shoulder when you finish the garment, and then you have the cutting line. There. All right, so I'll get this on the table and show you how to do the next step. Okay, now we are going to, I'm not going to worry about the back being wider because we're not attaching a sleeve here. So what I'm going to do is, here's the line I told you to mark for where you wanted your sleeve or your shoulder to end. And then I had you come out 1/4 of an inch because that's going to be our cut line. And I had you take the sleeve off because we needed this raw edge here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to align this with that cut edge because we don't want to cut it any further down. So I'm going to take this end and I'm going to place it right on the cut line, not the fold line where it's going to be finished at. And I'm going to take my chalk and come down and create the new cut line. Whoops. Now you see how this is at an angle. It comes down like this when you have a sleeve to put on, but because we're not putting a sleeve on, we want to kind of make it as straight as possible. And even with that, you could probably go a little straighter depending on how you turn your ruler. But see, you can even get a little bit more there. And I might do that because you don't want it to come down too much and expose too much in the front. So you can just cut right here. And then I will show you on one side and then I'll do the other side either off camera or not even do that side, but I'll show you what this looks like. So make sure that your shirt is lying as flat as you can get it. Now at this point you can pin it to make sure it doesn't shift, or you can just leave it like this. Now I kind of turned it because I want it to be a little more flat right here instead of coming to a point. So there we go. So that's going to be our new cut line. Okay, now that you cut this off of that shirt, I want you to flip it over, line it up here, and then cut it off this side just to make sure that it's going to be the same. And you just follow it down. Try not to shift it while you're moving or you're chalking it down out. Then go ahead and follow that chalk line and cut that off. And then you'll have the sides that are equal. And then you're going to need bias tape, single fold. I have blue because they were out of white at the store. So for this purpose, we're going to use the blue. So I will start with this one. Now what you're going to do is, now you could either base stitch this or not. You might want to if you're not really careful enough to not stretch your fabric. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this down just a little bit, kind of finger press it, and then on one side I'm going to align it right here and just pin it on. Now it might make it easier if before you pin it on here that you take it to the iron and press down one side. I'm not going to because I forgot to heat my iron up. So without stretching anything, just go ahead and pin this down all the way around. Okay, now you see you're coming back around to where you started. I'm just going to remove this pin and pin it through both layers. And then cut it off. From here, you're going to take it to the sewing machine and you're going to sew right on that crease right there. Okay, I had to take my binding off and put it back on because on the shoulder area, I didn't have it quite straight enough, and so it wasn't going against, see, it was kind of like this, and the fabric was like just barely beyond the stitching line. So I had to take mine off and redo it, which happens often with me. So now what we're going to do is take our binding like this and press it forward. Press the seam allowance towards the binding like that. My phone is clamped to my ironing board, so if it bounces, that's why. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just going to do this all the way around. I may turn off the camera because it's just going to bounce around. And this is going to make it easier to do the understitching that I'm going to show you how to do. Okay, with my seam allowance pressed towards the binding all the way around, I'm going to start sewing on this side, and I'm going to start sewing right on the edge of the blue. And that's just going to help everything to lay nicely when we flip it onto the inside and stitch it down. Go ahead and clean up your threads. Now we're going to just flip it down like this, and then sew on this edge here. Now, what helps here is you see how I'm kind of leaning this over to the side because it's a curve around the armhole, and so you want to make sure that there's no puckers or folds underneath the binding. So I'm just trying to lay the fabric flat, and what's nice is that because the binding is a bias cut, it will curve around like that, just like the armhole. When you fold the blue binding down, make sure that you can see just a little bit of the shirt beyond it, so that you know that when the shirt is turned right side out, that you won't be able to see the binding. If the binding is the same color as a shirt, it won't be quite as noticeable, but you still want it to have that nice smooth edge. Okay, that's what it looks like on the inside, and that's what it looks like on the outside. Hi, you guys. Okay, thank you for watching the video all the way to this end. I will try to hurry this up. This is the shirt. This is the side that I altered on video, and because I didn't take that second fitting to really fit it to me, this is what it comes up. It's just real gapey, and this you can actually see the bra on this side. But what I did before I put the binding on this one is I went through and I pinched out this and tapered it, and I pinched out more on the side, and it just brings it really nice and close to the body. Still plenty of room to move. So once you get your sleeves off and it cut off where you want it, put it on and really just pinch out that excess to make sure it's going to fit the way you want it to. And if you can see here, you see some puckering. If you want, I can show you in another video how to take care of that, because you went from a big shirt, probably for a large busted person, to a smaller form, smaller bust. And when you have to adjust that curve, that can happen. So if you want me to address that in another video, I will. And that's it. I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it, share it, and if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that now. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.